Not yet, not yet, not yet. Let's see. It looks like we are live. Hey, all right. Jake's waving. All right. Well, today I know my voice is probably working and my camera looks like it's a little behind. So what I'm going to do is I am going to kill my camera.
Oh, hey everybody.
All right, Josh, where'd you go?
Okay, wasn't what we were looking for. But anyway, let's just get rolling. This is
let's go.
This is what I love about like the podcast. By the way, this is REI Courage episode 13. You guys are lucky number 13. We took a month off working some deals and putting some other infrastructure together. Obviously, my computer power is not one of those things I worked on since my computer is lagging a little bit behind. I'm going to stop my camera, so hopefully, can you guys still hear my voice? Give me a yes.
Oh, right. So beautiful.
It's so beautiful. Fantastic. Let me see if I can. Yeah. So what we're going to do, I'm going to make you guys the primary. You can still hear my voice, right? But you guys are the ones on camera. Curveball, surprise, just to see if this works since mine was lagging so much. But I've got Freedom Path investors on the REI Courage podcast, and we are going to go in. I love these guys, Brian and Jake. I can't say enough good things about these guys. Like they are looking, their whole premise is the path to freedom is through real estate and rental properties. Their goal, your guys' overarching goal, you said is 100 doors is your like big overarching goal. Yes.
Yeah, that's correct, sir. Yes.
Nailed that one. But they've had a diverse background. They worked with each other before they started this company. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let these guys go into their past, go into like their journey, what they've done. Like I've known these guys for, when did we start, talking to each other? About 6 months ago?
Yeah, 6 months.
Yep.
Something like that. Yeah. So these guys are amazing. Also, I want to wish Brian a happy birthday as well. So give him some love. If you guys want to drop some birthday love, he decided to come on working on his birthday, doing podcasts on his birthday. Like these guys are fantastic and awesome. So I'm going to let them, with that introduction, let them go into it. And, how we do it. If you've seen the past ones, we'll pepper in some questions. We'll just sidetrack maybe. It's all a journey. They also just signed a deal before coming on, so I want to have them go into that a little bit. So we've got a full hour worth of content coming to you guys, and I'm happy to be back on with Jake and Brian and get this rolling. So you guys have the full screen, so go into it.
All right. Well, where should we start, Jake? It's been a long journey. We both been in real estate full time for a few years now. For me, it's kind of ironic. We're doing this on my birthday. When I turned 30 5 years ago, that's when I pretty much that weekend decided to pursue a path in real estate. I'd been thinking about it for a while. I'm not going to lie. I was kind of a big fan of the fixer-upper shows and the HGTVs and all that. And me and my dad were actually always talking about, man, it'd be really cool to do a flip. Him and I liked working on things together. We used to work on cars together. So we ended up going to one of the one of the national guru coaching companies blew through town. And we went to that 3-day event, drank the Kool-Aid. Day 2 was my birthday. I went out that night, had a surprise birthday party. I almost didn't make it to the final 3rd day because we had too much fun that night. Nice. But that's when we signed up for that program and started out on my path, and that was 5 years ago now. But so early on, I did a couple deals on my own. I did a couple wholesales and a joint venture on a really big rehab project to get going. And that was my first year in business. It was, I think, 2-3 deals that we did. And at the same time, I bought a flip. I was going to plan on doing a fix and flip. I ended up actually moving my family into it. So I had that project going on. I had this huge $100,000 rehab in Benton Park going on, and everything that could go wrong was happening at the same time on both of these rehabs. And my life was hell for several months, honestly. I had to go through a lawsuit with the contractor I had originally hired on my house, and it got pretty bad. So year 1, I'm like, man, I don't know if I love rehabbing that much, just doesn't know when it's all cracked up to be.
Oh yeah.
And but I knew I wanted to pursue real estate still. And I was like, man, I'm just not getting to where I want to go fast enough. I was still working a day job and doing this on the weekends and everything. And so I've been in touch with some other people through who I met through that coaching company, and kept following them and talking to those guys. And the opportunity came up for a role to go work with them as acquisition manager for their business. And that's how I got my first full-time start into real estate. I quit my day job and got to go work with those guys. And over a couple of years, I learned a ton. I helped acquire over 100 properties for them. Also helped manage some of the rehab projects near the end there. And then somewhere in the middle here, I met Jake when he was working for another investor in town, and actually sold me a couple of deals when I was working for that other company as acquisition manager. So that's where we hit it off. Jake kept telling me about, because they were primarily wholesaling. I'm like, that sounds good, man. You guys aren't messing with the rehabs. You're making this money, just you're wholesaling everything. And is it all what it's cracked up to be? It sounds great.
It is.
So Jake and our former partner started courting me for a while, and I went to work for them for close to a year. And so we just actually celebrated our first year in business on March 1st. March
Monday.
1st. Yeah, Monday this week. Oh man, happy anniversary!
Yeah, happy birthday, happy anniversary. Look at that.
So yeah, Jake and I worked together for a while for that other guy, and it's somewhere in the middle there. We both we'd always talk about, man, we both want to own rentals at some point.
Yep.
And so we actually came across an opportunity, and we went for it. Got our first rental going, and decided there shortly after, well, let's just do the whole thing. Let's just do a whole flipping business, and that's when we went out on our own.
Yeah.
But Jake, I stole the mic. Can you backstory right here?
Thank you, Brian.
That's awesome. Yeah. So that's a perfect segue into Jake. Go ahead.
Yeah. So my story, I guess, like backing up a little bit before I got into real estate. I went to college, and I got a degree in psychology. Graduated in the summer of 2000, at the end of 2011. And I couldn't find a job and employment. At the time, I was working for Outback, and it was just like I had a family, I had a useless college degree, and so I just had to go, dive into the whole being a manager at Outback, and I completely hated that job. So fast forward a few years, I got out of Outback. I started working at a different company, hated that as well, but I knew I was only going to be there for a short period of time. And then I had some dinner guests over at my house, and a friend of mine, Mike Redenbow, came over, and he was doing property management. And he was like, dude, you should totally sign up for property management, get your real estate license. You can make all this money. And he painted, I'll be honest, he misled me. He painted a really great picture of being a property manager and how easy it can be. I think the operative word is can. And so I signed on. I completely quit my W-2 job and just dove straight into real estate and got my license. Thank God I passed the test the first time I took it. And so I spent a year as a property manager, actually a year and a half. Built up a lot of contacts while I was doing that. Gained a lot of experience. But at some point, I started to see all this money being exchanged in front of me. Houses being sold, referral fees being handed out like candy, $500 to $1,000 a pop inside the office and so forth and so on. Yeah. I was like, what is this? And I learned about wholesaling. And so doing that, I explored that a little bit, plugged into the Faster House network a little bit, went to some of the buyer clubs meetings, which I highly encourage anybody to do if they're thinking about getting into real estate. Go network, go figure it out, go to those places. Don't be shy like I am. So I did that, came across a guy named Chris Clewine, signed up for his program, started wholesaling myself with some mixed, success there. But eventually I was offered a job with somebody. He was like, hey, dude, why don't you just come work for me? I'll give you a certain deal split. I'll take care of the marketing. You don't have to worry about that, because at the time I was paying like $3,000 a month for marketing. And I was like, my cash reserves were quickly dropping. So I did that. And that's where, I met Brian through that as well. And so here we are today. Brian kind of took it from there. So, yeah.
All right. So there's all kinds of stuff in that history, you guys. So it said, I heard Brian, you say, well, rehabbing a year in, this kind of sucks. It's not what I want to, do. And then, Jake, you got sold, as I call it, sold the bill of goods as far as, hey, property management, come take a look at that. It's amazing, right? And so you guys kind of, it sounds like, because of your experiences of not having great experiences in the aspect that you're doing, you guys kind of join together. Now, would you say that you guys complement each other based on your skills? Like, I've known you guys long enough, so this is kind of a leading question, but do you guys complement each other on your skill sets? I'm not even gonna pretend like I'm not setting you guys up to like into a whole thing about that. So can you guys tell us, and this is good for people that maybe have partnerships or are looking to partner up with people in the industry, like what were you guys looking for, or what made it to seem like it was going to be a great partnership for you guys to go off? You said you got this one like rental you guys decided to do. How did that rental turn out, or what was the process to where like there was a point where you're like, you know what,
before we decided to go buy a rental together, we didn't just team up because we were buddies and pals, but Jake and I actually we knew we wanted to form a partnership. We took a whole Saturday night one evening when we were thinking about it, went through this 50-page business partner evaluation, and we really dug into each other to make sure it was going to be right. Like, we do complement each other well, just with our personalities and different skill sets. Like for example, when we run pretty much every seller lead together, just because I don't know, like I play well with some people and Jake does with others. Like if this is if this is a social butterfly type personality, Jake can talk to them forever. I'll get tired out. They'll suck the life out of me and I'll just probably blow the lead. Yep. I can be more analytical when it comes down to like, all right, here's the numbers and here's what we can offer. That's really where I shine. But we kind of just go in, we get a feel of the room of what this seller's like, and one of us kind of takes the lead, Yeah. In our day-to-day business, though, we're running a flipping company and a rental business. So Jake has all that prior experience as a property manager. I've, acquired several properties for a turnkey company and helped manage those projects. So it's a really good blend of skill sets that we have for each other.
Yeah, and I would also add too, like just for anyone else who's wanting to join in a partnership, we both have experience in real estate enough to where we could just hit the ground running. And there was of course, there was a little bit of like figuring things out. And there's always going to be that, but there wasn't as much of it starting out. So we both had that experience that we could actually get started and get going well. I think a lot of people that first start together with a partnership and they have no real estate experience, that might be a little difficult because you have no idea what you're even good at inside of that business in general. I
can speak from experience. Like I partnered up with my dad at first, and we were totally green. And we found out pretty quick, like we maybe not the best to work with each other, and like not having any experience trying to figure out our roles inside of a business was really tough. And a lot of people jump into real estate investing and just so they can call themselves a real estate investor. I'm doing something awesome. I'm a CEO entrepreneur now. But it's so sexy. Yeah, right?
It's so sexy.
I can start posting all these checks that I'm making and everything.
Oh, yeah.
There's so many different avenues within real estate and investing. I feel like you got to try stuff out and figure out what you like and what you're good at, where you can find a niche within this space.
Like going to work for someone else really helped us find that.
Yeah.
Like we both did different jobs inside of the real estate sphere. Not even all of it, but parts of it. And so we kind of found out what our strengths and weaknesses were at. Like I don't love being a property manager, but I know enough about it now to get the portfolio going. He doesn't love being a project manager, but he knows enough about it now to get the portfolio going. At some point, we will hand that off to someone else, right?
Right.
So
yeah. And that's, and Brian, you touched on a thing that for me and Jake, you touched on it just now as well, is like having a partner that neither one of you really had experience can kind of be the blind leading the blind, and nobody knows what really what the next step is going to be. Brian, you said, and Jake, you kind of too, you guys found guys or people or groups or businesses that were already doing it in the industry and found a way to provide value of them. Brian, you made the shift over. Jake, you did as well. And, my history, I did it as well. I went from selling airplane parts to, working with a wholesaling company. And Brian, you started working for a turnkey doing 100 units, and, Jake, the same thing. And that for me with new people is I always recommend, and you guys hit on it, find a way to provide value for people that are already doing it so you can learn at the same time you're getting paid.
I'll just add one more thing about forming partnerships, Josh. I see a lot of people where, one person's the money partner. They're not going to do any of the work, and they're going to let the other person go figure out everything and do all the legwork. And I think you've got to go into it with the same vision, the same enthusiasm and work ethic. It can't be so lopsided with the labor. I mean, the money piece is a really big part of this, but that can't be the end all be all. Yeah. So I would just throw that out there. If somebody's thinking like they need to find a money partner to succeed in this, I'd maybe reevaluate that a little bit,
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that's the thing too. You find people that have been doing this, there's access to money, and that's not saying that like you said, it's not invaluable, but got to be a fit. It's got to be like, you guys are a great example of a counterbalance, and you mentioned Faster House, Jake, like Sam and Lucas, who I had on the podcast, is like one of my first guests. Like, that's a great example too. They have skill sets that counterbalance each other. It's a 1 + 1 = 3, as opposed to half plus half equals 1. Like, it's a expansion of who you are to help facilitate growth, as opposed to we're just really fighting to try and figure out really where we're going. Right? Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah. It's synergy, right?
Yeah. Hey, that's a good word for it. That's great. Yeah. So that's, I love your guys' background. I love your history. Like, you guys have been through the trenches. You've been through, like Brian even said, like the first year was not great, but you guys have kind of come on to the other side. You guys are looking to expand your business. You're doing deals. And a great example is, we kind of talked about it. You were signing a deal before you even came on here. I was afraid I was going to have to freewheel for a little bit, but I came on, launched this thing, and you guys were already sitting there. So can you go into like whatever details? Obviously you don't have to give specifics, but it sounded like it was a very interesting how the actual deal was structured and kind of the process. Can you go into that at all?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's probably one of the more creative deals that either of us have ever done.
For sure. Absolutely.
So we got this lead back in
September,
August last year.
Yeah.
First went out there, and it was pretty clear that our cash offer wasn't going to quite work with the seller. But we knew he was motivated. He had to do something with it. Yep. So we just threw it out there, put a little nugget like, hey, if our cash offer doesn't work, there's other creative ways we can make things jive. So give us a call. And a week or two later, he's like, hey, you guys mentioned getting creative. Like, I've done lease purchases before. This was kind of a tired landlord. He had several rental properties. And I've done lease purchases with some of my tenants before. I don't want to sell the house until after the new year for tax reasons, I think.
Yep.
But it's going to sit vacant. He had a tenant leave on him, and it needed all this work just to get through occupancy. So gotcha. I don't really want to sit vacant. If you guys want to do a lease purchase and work on the rehab, and we'll sell it after the new year. Like, all right, sounds great.
Easy.
So benefits was, sounds easy, right?
Yeah.
Easy.
So, I mean, even though we made that offer on terms with the seller, we still got to find capital for the rehab. It needed $45K in work. Actually ended up being more like 50.
Yeah, because we did the roof.
Yeah. But I mean, instead of going out and tying up $160,000 or $70,000 in one property, we just had to find 45 for the rehab, and we were able to go out and use other capital to deploy it for other projects. So we're making him a monthly payment for the property. We had a pretty ironclad agreement, and we actually just sold on it. We're not closing on it for sure yet, but today we just cashed him out of the deal. We have it sold on the back end, but we have to hold it for a short seasoning period in our own company. So we're going to get to cash him out of the deal finally. He got what he wanted at the end. He actually made more in the long run because we're paying him a monthly check for the rent, basically.
Yeah.
And it was just a win-win for everybody. Really great guy. I was really happy we were able to help him out. He's going to make good money on it. And when we found him, he didn't have the time or the energy or the resources to get that house fixed up and sold again.
Yeah.
So I really felt like we helped out the guy and win-win for everybody.
Yeah, we made the house look a lot better because it was kind of run down. So that street's looking a lot better with that house. New roof, siding painted, and just freshened up all around. So it was a good thing. And then also too, just to add, is like our monthly rent payment to him was less than what we would pay for interest. And there's no points in the back end, right, for the closing. So our cost of money has completely dropped, and we're looking to do more deals like that too, give some more opportunities for things like that. For sure.
I mean, if I would have known we were going to have to cash him out of the deal and hold it again, we probably could have done this a little bit sooner.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like Jake said, we saved on our monthly payment. We didn't have to tie up capital. And would you spend $5 or $6 grand to make 25, 35K on a flip? I mean, it's like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So, why would you?
Right.
Why would you? and so that's the thing. So just for my own edification, my own education, did you guys, you said you cashed them out. Did you just bring in a different private money, or did you use like a conventional type loan that you had to get an appraisal?
Yeah, we used the same private money lender. And
Gotcha.
He just funded the rest of it. He was happy to do that. And then, exactly. We'll keep his money working for him.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure after you guys fixed it up and rehabbed it, it had equity, obviously. So he was probably they were probably, I'm not going to say it's a man, I don't know who it is, but they were probably more willing to loan that amount since you had rehabbed it. It's in a better shape. It's, it's got more equity, right?
Well, and it's easy because we already got it sold. And it's like, hey man, this is a done deal. What we're all into it for is like 70% of that value. So it's like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like it basically became transactional funding at that point.
It's essentially what it is. Exactly right. Yeah. So
awesome. Okay. Fantastic. That is a more advanced technique of a lease option carry back. Like that takes a little bit of skill set just to navigate the mental capacity of like structuring that deal. For most new investors that come from the wholesale world, it's the era.
And I got to tell you, Josh, I've been trying to do a creative deal like that for a long time. It's the first one we were able to pull off,
and the only one so far.
I mean, some gurus out there say that's the only kind of deals they do, and I would love to figure it out, but I wouldn't say like this would work out with every typical seller. This guy was an experienced landlord. He's a little more savvy, so he understood how this was going to work.
Yeah, he's a business owner himself.
Right.
Yeah, so he understood why that would be beneficial for him.
I mean, you got to have a lot of trust in who you're doing this with. Because, we never took title while we're rehabbing the property. That's a big risk.
We did. For anyone who wants to do this, though, we did send the information over to the title company to run search. That way there was no, no liens.
So we knew we had clear title, and this is all going to be done.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that's a great point of making sure that you've got clear title, because you don't want to do that and end up having a $30,000 mechanics lien that you weren't anticipating.
Right.
Because they were like, yeah, it's good. Trust but verify is always the phrase that comes to mind. So
ain't that the truth.
Yeah, right. No, that's awesome. And that's the thing, like you hit on it, guys, that is a very specific type of seller that will help facilitate that. It's got to be somebody that they get that it's going to be more beneficial for them in the long run, as opposed to just cashing out. So like you said, this guy's got some savvy. He knows like, hey, I need to hold it and we can do it this way and I'll get better tax advantages and make more money. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing to add to that real quick is like he came to Brian with that idea. Is that correct?
Yeah. Like I said earlier, like we kind of planted the seed, but he brought that, pitched that to us.
So it was his idea. So if you're trying to pitch these ideas, try say it in a way where they can come back and be like, oh, it's my idea to offer owner financing. They're much more likely to do it.
The greatest thing you can do in sales is help the other person understand that your idea is what they want to do and make it their idea.
That's exactly right. Well put. Yes.
Yeah. Easiest way. Reassociate is what we're talking about. Yeah. So, that deal sounds like, for me, I enjoy the creative side. So for like me, like you said, Brian, like looking for those and like figuring out how to make those work is always fun. Like when you hold back, like for me, getting people out of houses that they're like, oh, we have to move and we have no money, and figuring out how to make that work without using your own money and like escrows and all that stuff and holdbacks. And it's fun. It gets to a point where it gets fun, right? So with that, you guys gave kind of your background. You gave an example of your like the deals that you guys do. What do you guys want to we can go into the questions. Like, what do you guys want to, this is your platform. You guys have a podcast yourself. Like, what is your ultimate goal and why you guys are doing this? So that like you guys have shared that you've overcame obstacles, you've overcame like the stumbling blocks. You guys have made it through that like really, I won't say dark time, but the beginning, what's the right word? Activation energy it takes to maintain and be here past that point of like, okay, I'm going to quit. No, we're going to make this work. Now it's a for sure thing. What kind of information, what kind of advice would you give to people that either are in that now or are like just starting out? Like, what's the piece of advice you would give to them over anything else?
Well, I think like we touched on already, if you want to get started in real estate, you don't necessarily want to, maybe some people do, some people don't, but go work for someone else and learn the ropes a little bit. You know what I mean? Some people don't want to do that. They're more daredevils. They want to go out on their own for sure. But eventually find something you love to do within it and stick to it and stay consistent. You'll probably succeed. I think a lot of people dabble in a lot of different things and they don't really land on a spot where they're actually good at anything. And they might just be chasing the money, but they really like the process. So that'd be my first bit of advice.
I mean, Josh, you kind of hit on it. Like, a lot of people never make it through that initial information gathering and to get the courage to go out and do a deal.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I mean, I took the approach of like, well, yeah, I'm going to go work for somebody and learn everything on the go, you know? So like, if you can find somebody to team up with, bring value to them, but you're learning along the way, that's a huge leg up. I would just say you got to be all in. You can't think this is going to be a hobby or something you're going to do on the nights and weekends. I mean, you might have some success, but there's so many people in this business right now. There's a new real estate investor every day, and a lot more people like Jake and I that are out there doing this full time. So you got to have the time or the money to put into it full time. If you have both, great. But when you're just starting out, a lot of people, the capital is the issue. You got to find the time to put into this to really get going. If you have the capital, great. That will help you get along further if you have more capital for marketing to deploy and everything. But
and what if?
I think
go ahead.
Teaming up, making relationships with people, and leveraging other people. You got to do that.
Yeah, and I'll be like another thing too to add is that we sat down with the mastermind, the Fast House Mastermind, and they built us a vision. Like Brian Schroeder sat down with us and he teased out all the information, things we want, and so forth. So, I mean, we have a vision that we're sticking to, right?
Yeah.
And that is our, North Star and which way we're going. So we know what our plan is. We know what we're supposed to be doing and where we're going. I think a lot of people get in there like, oh, I just want to make a lot of money. Here's like 50 different ways I can make a ton of money. And they're all over the place. And like going back to the last thing with dabbling, like it's really important to make your plan and have a vision for what you're doing.
Yeah. Like it's on my vision to have a boat one day.
I'll say there's 4.7%.
I'm like, hey, honey, let's go to the boat show this weekend. She's like, why? Why are we going to do that? Well, it's on the vision board. It's going to happen within the next 5 years. So
vision building. Yeah. It's a part of it. Yeah.
It's my birthday, honey. I went and bought a boat.
You don't have a truck to pull it with.
Yeah. I got a truck.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, we're going to have to get you a lakefront property as well. So you just have a boat slip. You don't need anything to tow it.
Also on the vision.
Yeah.
Like Jake said, I mean, we call ourselves the Freedom Path Investors. That's why we landed on the name. Everything we're doing here is because we're creating a path towards financial freedom, towards personal freedom. And that's what we're all about, really. And the sellers that we work with, we really feel like we're helping a lot of people and we're putting them on a new path, the Freedom Path. Like this guy that we just closed a deal with yesterday, probably the most agreeable seller we've ever dealt with. I don't know if it could ever get any easier than this guy. I shouldn't say easy, but like just super agreeable, fun to work with. And he's about to retire within a matter of weeks, and he wants to go right off into the sunset. and go to his new lake property that he just bought.
The sunset is Arkansas, by the way, folks. Yeah. That's his sunset.
In the way is selling
everybody's
his
is
personal
different.
house, and then this problem property that he was still hanging on to is his original family home.
Yeah.
And he let his kids live in there.
No kitchen, no bathroom.
They ran the property down. Nobody put any love into it for several years.
Yeah.
So he's just like, guys, I just want to go retire. I'm ready to be done here. Yep. So let's do this thing, you know.
So he cashed out. You said he's been a landlord for a while, so he's been in the industry, right?
So this is a different deal.
Oh,
we did
a different one. Okay.
Hey, man, we've had 3 closings this week.
Yeah, closers.
Come on, guy. Come on.
So, and you guys, Brian, you touched on it too, and kind of this whole conversation encompasses it and pulls back to what you talked about with people getting into the industry. It's the same thing with sellers. And that's one of the people when I train, acquisition people, and they're wondering like, well, why would a seller take less from you when you make an offer than somebody that, is going to offer them 10 grand more? Money is a tool, and sometimes money is not what people value the most. Sometimes it's, as you guys just said, freedom. Sometimes it's the ability to make the decision. Now, granted, sometimes money helps you facilitate those decisions a little easier, but it's a value system based on, just like with sellers, just like people getting into the industry. And Brian, I love it. You said, if you're only in it for the money, like that money there, sometimes that can create a disconnect, and you can actually destroy yourself because you don't have that money, and you kill yourself because that's all you value. And if you don't have that value and it's not in your bank account, then like, what are you doing it for? And that's when people quit, right?
If you're getting into this business just on the sole premise of I want to make a lot of money, you're not going to last. You're going to burn out. You got to have a bigger why than that.
Yeah, or you're going to continue to burn bridges because it's all about the money, and it's not about like relationships, and it's not about growing as a person, and you're going to do whatever it takes. So at least from my experience, and it sounds like from yours as well. So
no, we just had a podcast we recorded with Jim Manning with 3 Doors, and it's going to be premiering later this evening. Watch out for that. Jim's all about networking and relationships. He was telling us how over half of their business over the past several years, when they go back at the end of the year and look at where all the deals came from, their networking deals exceeded a lot of times from the paid marketing. And just because they've been in the business so long and made these key relationships, people bring them deals, and it's all about networking and relationships, man.
Yeah. And that's the conversation that, you guys we've had over the past couple months as well, of like the shift, like how it comes across to me, and I've experienced, is we get the guerrilla tactics for the people that are new, that don't have any money. Then you get to a point where it's like, okay, I've tried all these things. I've got my experience. I'm able to do these. And then they start coming from other people that and then you get to a point where you build up enough, and then it's just like, we're going to flood the market like Faster House with a bunch of direct mail. No, I love those guys. But that seems to be kind of how I've seen the process go. And that's what I'm currently learning out of the traditional. Like, I've got 3 closings scheduled this month, but it's from networking over the past 45 to 60 days. They didn't come from prospecting. They didn't come from marketing. Now, granted, they're not going to be gigantic deals that can come from prospecting, but it's getting those reps in and doing the deals and making them work and still cashing checks and getting your name out there. And then that home run comes in every so often, those doubles and triples, and the big ones are after you craft that muscle with the singles, right? Does that make sense? Am I
it's all going to ebb and flow. You have to do both. No matter where you're at in the game, what level, how experienced you are. Like, example, Q4 last year, if we didn't close a referral lead, we would have had a really bad quarter. Like, all of our deals we closed in Q4 were from networking and referrals.
Yep.
And then, the next Q1, it's, direct mail's kicking butt, or the text messaging. It's just you got to be consistent and do multiple layers of marketing and networking. You never know where it's going to come from, or it's like a horse race. It's like they're always jockeying each other. And Just got to constantly be doing it all.
And like I've been in wholesaling for like the last 3 years, so I can say that there's times or certain years where like 50% of your money, your income for the year, might be made in just a couple months. Like I mean, not to brag, but I mean, like I've made like 30 or so grand back to back months a couple times, and then like the next 2 months after that, I don't make anything. Yeah. Right. So it's just like when you start making money, you still got to stay consistent. You still got to keep going because the next month isn't guaranteed.
Yeah, and the theme that kind of has come across for me over the past couple months, actually since October, has been getting what did Brian Schroeder say on your podcast? And I loved it because it really sank in for me. It's keep the lights on and keep moving forward. So for me, it's like once the lights are on, and I'm sure the lights are going to stay on, then it's just about planting seeds that I get to reap later on. Like as long as my bills are paid, everything else is like future profits for me. I'm just keep continuing planting seeds, continuing like harvesting, sowing. Like it becomes a continuous process of growth and just putting yourself out there, putting the marketing out there. Like, and you guys are great examples too. Like, every conversation we have, it's okay, what's the next step? What's the next thing we need to do? What can we do better? What can become more efficient? What can we like continue to provide value of? Like, where can we improve?
Or what are we missing?
That's a great question too. Yeah. What are we missing? So just like that, snap of a finger, we're at 40 minutes in. Again, we could probably chat for like 6 hours. This is why I love doing the podcast, taking the break. I appreciate you guys being my first one back. What would you guys say? So now I get into a couple of the questions. What would you guys say you've experienced in this industry from over the years that has been easier than you expected in the industry and tougher than you expected in the industry?
Oh, yeah. I think that honestly, I think it's like getting money to start the rental portfolio. That's a lot easier than I thought it was going to be.
Go into that. What do you mean? What was your expectation of it versus your experience of how it actually went?
It's like, I don't know. We work with Faster Funds and then we have a private money lender. So the conversation with Faster Funds, like, hey, give me your information. All right, cool. Everything checks out. Here you go. Here's your loan. And that whole process, like we did our first rehab. We did a lot of it ourselves, like painting and things like that. Don't want to do that ever again. But it was just like, it was way easier than I thought it was going to be. I don't know what I thought. I thought it was going to be more of a challenge. I thought maybe we wouldn't get approved. COVID, like we started in the middle of a pandemic for crying out loud. And I was like, okay, COVID's going to slow us down or whatever. But it was so easy. And then also I want to add to that, getting refinanced with a bank was oddly easy. And that's not the case with everybody. That was strange.
Yeah, I mean, on the flip side, Josh, like early on in my investing path, career, if you call it, the capital piece was always the biggest hang up for me. I didn't think I could go out and get the funding. I didn't know the people as far as private lenders. And that's really what kind of slowed my growth early on and why I kept telling myself I had to work with other people. Until I just said, we believed in ourselves and like, hey, we've got all the skills and the tools and the talent and people are going to want to work with us. So you go out there and start projecting that and start asking for it and you get it back in return. So if you keep telling yourself, oh, I'm never going to get funding, I'm never going to be able to raise capital, then you're not. The easiest part too, like Jake said, we were kind of scared to go to the bank to refinance our first rental, and we put it off for several months.
Bad idea.
And then when you actually sit down and go through it, it's like, what were we thinking? That was so easy.
Yeah, it was super easy. Yeah. And I'll say, not everyone has that same experience. I don't know what it was. Like I think him and I just kind of came in there like, you're going to loan us this money. It's going to happen. There's no questions about it.
We have a smoking hot deal for you.
We know what we're doing. We have experience.
We can take it somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're gonna refinance this, or I'm going down the street to your competitor.
I hope he's not on Facebook.
Yeah. I mean,
who wants to refinance this? Put it out.
Yeah, exactly. Give me your money.
I'd say another thing, Josh, is
what's the hardest?
The hardest, I mean, for me, has been to delegate and ask for help and to leverage people. Once I started to give into that,
he said give in.
Brian got beat down to the point he had to let go of it. Like No, but yeah, no, I get what you're saying, man. Go ahead.
I mean, just like I've always used to be kind of one of those people, like I want to dive in and figure it out on my own, you know. But like just working with Jake, getting out. We're part of a bunch of networking groups now. We have all these people to lean on. We just celebrated a first year in business. We would not be where we are today if we didn't have those relationships and those people in our network.
Yeah, definitely, man. Support and that's you. I love that point, Brian, of the support. A lot of people feel like, well, if I ask for support or I put it out there that I need support, like I'm going to be less than, or like they'll see it's not smart enough, or it's embarrassing. And in reality, it's one of those, like the people that are out there doing it, they do not do it on their own. Like they have teams, they have huge support systems, they have huge support networks, and that allows you to operate. And you guys are starting to, step into that as well, of like, you guys, you talked about it with Jake. Like, I don't want to be painting a house anymore. Like swinging a hammer. Like I'll do it, but that's not the point, right? Your most valuable effort, time, experience is not like painting and watching paint dry. Like that's not where you guys excel in, like crafting deals, leading people, oversight. Like that's where you guys. That's your high ticket item, right?
I mean, you got to look at where you're at, man. Like where you're at with your experience, or what kind of capital you have access to. So when Jake and I first teamed up, we went to a workshop back last March, and it really made us dive in and analyze like what we like, what we're good at, where we see ourselves operating within our business before we ever even started. Really, it was at the very beginning.
Yeah, it was at the beginning. Yep.
And a lot of gurus are going to say, "Oh, just go out and hire out everything and just sit back and business runs itself. It's great." Like it's all bullshit. That maybe some people can pull it off. It's probably 1%. I mean, you've got to do what you got to do until you can hire it out or find the right person on your team. But I'm a big believer. Like I want to have done that job first before I hire it out, because I want to know they need to know what to expect. I need to be able to give clear direction and expectations. So even if it's the smallest job, you got to spend a week or a month at it, figure it out. At least that's my personal belief, instead of just going and hiring a bunch of VAs and then getting into a huge nightmare of managing people from halfway across the world. And
I mean, I'll say that like you don't need to necessarily be the master at whatever that task is, but you just need to be a functional enough expert, because if you start hiring people in a position that you don't even know how to run, you're not gonna be able to give them any kind of direction at all. You start hiring VAs to do things for you and call, bad idea. Not unless you know how to do it yourself.
Yeah, and that's a great point. The phrase that always comes up when we talk about delegation is you can delegate, but don't abdicate. And what that means is, like, when you abdicate a throne, I'm just giving it up. Like, I don't have to worry about it. I'm just going to hand it over to this person and they're going to take care of it. Yeah. That's a recipe for disaster, right? Like I don't like it so much, I'm just going to hand it over and like let them take care of it. Mm-hmm. That's not owning your business, right? That's more like, hey, I don't want to deal with this, so I'm just going to not pay attention to it. Well, that's a great recipe for not having the results that you want, right? We
know where we want to be. It's in our vision, like where we want to operate. And we're slowly, as we get more reserves, we can hire on more people. We're slowly getting where we want to be. We're doing what we got to right now. Yep. But if you don't have a clear vision of where you want to be in your life and your business, and you're just going about the motions every day, trying to do everything, then you're going to stay on that constant hamster wheel, right?
Yeah.
So
you're always going to find a reason to be back doing that thing.
Yeah.
Is how I experience it. And so, you're exactly, like you nailed it, man. So we're at 45 minutes. We can keep rolling. I can keep peppering you guys with questions. You guys, is there anything specifically? Actually, let's see. I've got a question for both of you that I haven't asked anybody yet. So are you ready for this question? What would you do? What would you be doing? And for Jake, this probably will run back to your college. What would you guys be doing if it wasn't real estate?
Oh, God.
Oh, boy.
Miserable.
I don't even think
I'd
about
be
that,
miserable.
Josh.
Jake, I saw you like look at the door like you just wanted to leave.
I did. I was about to get up and leave, Josh. How dare you? No,
That's great.
I would have probably eventually finagled my way to some sort of corporate job. I don't want to say it like I have a standard to want to make a lot of money, so I would figure out how to do that. But I probably would have been really, really miserable. Would be my guess.
Would you have been like a Wall Street like financier, like the suit and
You can tell by my hair, can't you? That's why I would be there. Yeah.
the luxurious that mane is amazing, by the way. If you haven't seen it in person, it's impressive.
I was just telling him how sweet his flow is looking.
My wife hates it.
I mean, look at this thing. This is what I'm working with.
Yeah.
No, I think that's great. I think that's good. No judgment, Josh.
So what did you say? You'd be on Wall Street?
No, he said I'd be on Wall Street.
Yeah.
I tend to gravitate towards whatever the highest level in a certain place would be by nature. I think you and I have talked about this before, Josh. Josh does my coaching with me. It's just a natural thing for me to do for the most part. So like if I can enter a room and there's bigwig people, somehow it doesn't happen that right then and there, but somehow I kind of get to them. Yeah. And I'm not that smart. I don't know why I'm able to do it, but they accept
it's a natural response for you because you're you relate to people. It's just a natural happenstance.
Yeah.
So what I heard was if you weren't doing real estate, you would probably be president of the country. No?
Logically.
It's just a natural process, man. No, that's awesome. So it wouldn't be real estate, but it would be some sort of high paying, lucrative position is where you'd be.
Yeah, I mean, like without thinking about it that much, I mean, I would guess so. Yeah, it would be something where I'd be miserable. And Mike Kitko's story, you know that Mike Kitko's story, how he jumped from like high paying position to high paying position, and he didn't like it. That's probably what I would have done.
Yeah. Mike was my coach a while back in the day. Like I love him. So yeah, I'm familiar with his, and that's the thing. Like he gives the story as well of like, he was raking in great money, working high level executive, and he was just miserable because it wasn't what he wanted to do. And yeah. So how about you, Brian? What would you be doing?
Man, I'm sitting here trying to come up with it. I don't know, man. Honestly, my first 30 years, I didn't know what I wanted, Josh. I was kind of just working for the weekend. I had a modest paying job. I used to work for an auto collision company. I started out in the shop working on the cars, doing paint work, and eventually went to the office management side, doing repair estimating and repair planning. And I always wanted to be my own boss. So I was always constantly thinking of ways to improve the shop and improve production. And I probably would eventually have found my way to open up my own shop someday. But at the point, like I said, I decided I want to get into real estate when I turned 30. Right before that same year, I had kind of a tragic event happen with me and my wife. And when I came out of that fog, I was like, man, I thought I was just living on Easy Street, had a good job and working for the weekend and having fun, going out drinking with friends. And I woke up and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I need something. I need something with purpose. And I'm so grateful I stumbled into real estate because I don't know where I'd be at, man. I'd be stuck in that job. I was 30 years old and I was like as high as I could go with that company. So I was starting to branch out and see what else was out there. Yeah. I got offers to go manage other shops. At the same time, I decided to go into real estate. Like, well, if I go on this path, I'm not going to pursue the real estate with my full heart. So
that was not the freedom path, was it?
That was not the freedom path.
The freedom path.
That was definitely not the freedom path, man. No, I hear that. That's
so. My answer is I'd probably still be miserable if I never got on this path. So
I feel that. Like I felt that. I'm sure there's other people that have felt that when they'll be watching this on replay. So that's yeah. Well, we got about 10 minutes left. The other question I want to ask you guys, you may or may not have one of these. Like, and by the way, Brian and Jake are in my old office. Like, so just the background. Like, I actually helped to get that, but. and it does relate to this question. The question I have is, I don't know if that I collected trophies from a couple of my deals. That cork like menagerie that's in the office. Do you guys still have that?
What the hell? What's a cork menagerie?
It's the little box, the glass box. It was in the windowsill. Is it still over there?
Oh yeah.
No. I threw it away. It's there.
All right. Well, anyway, what that brings up, the question that I have is, like, that was a very sentimental like deal for me as far as like what it required to get it done and how that's the one I actually daisy chained our own wholesale. Anyway, that's a whole different case study. But do you guys have any like sentimental deals or like deals that when they got done, kind of like the one you guys said you just signed, where it's a very creative deal, or like you helped somebody so much that it like really solidified that you're like, yeah, I'm never doing anything else again?
Oh yeah.
I actually have a funny story if that's any consolation.
Hey, that works.
Okay.
What do you got?
All right. So I was got a lead from some meth heads, and it was a house in St. Charles, and so I go out there, look at the house is condemned. They're sitting on the front porch smoking cigarettes, and it was a bear to get a hold of them. Like they had some like burner phone. They kept changing the numbers. I don't know how we kept keeping in touch with them, but at any rate, I go out there. She's like, "Yep, I'll sell you the house. All good to go. No big deal." Sign on the dotted line after a little bit of negotiating. And then come to find out, she's not the only person that needs to sign. There's all kinds of different heirs and things like that. Dead people, too. That's all got to get ironed out. And so I say this, it's been a few years now. Her brother died in the house. So he had part ownership. And then I think his kid had part ownership in there or something like that because he was there. Another brother lives somewhere else. Him and his sister hated each other. There's this whole rat's nest. So I had to like get on the phone and negotiate with everybody what their deal split was going to be for closing. And it was just like being a counselor. It was so cool.
Yeah.
It eventually went, but the funny part of the whole thing was that the seller that I met at the house, she would say that her brother's no good, he's a liar, all this other stuff. So I jumped on CaseNet and started looking into stuff, and I found out that her dead brother got a ticket 3 months after he died in Kansas City. So I called the highway patrol in Kansas City to let them to find out what was going on there, and then the arresting officer or whatever that pulled him over called me back like a few months later after the deal closed and asked me about it. And apparently the other brother that signed, he faked his brother's ID. Took his brother's ID and faked it, and he got arrested. So, it was just this whole thing. Like she was running prostitutes. She offered me one. It was such a bizarre. Like I can't even.
It's like a Jerry Springer episode.
There's so many moving pieces. It's hard for me to tell the story.
It's amazing. And this is why they make reality TV shows for, investors, without a doubt. Like, that's not like, I laugh because I know that's not too far out of the realm of possibility for what we deal with.
No.
That's awesome, though. I've never had a seller fake. Yeah, I don't how do you think to do that?
But another thing, too, is like that deal would have fallen apart. And this is not a bragging thing. That deal would have fallen apart had I not tried to negotiate and work with the siblings on how much they were going to get. Because by all rights, I think it was like 25. The splits were weird, and I don't want to try to do the math. But someone was supposed to get a certain percentage, and this person was supposed to get another percentage.
Yeah.
They disagreed on how much each one contributed to this condemned house. It was laughable. And I was like, okay, well, how about to get your sister off your back, you take a haircut on what you're going to get. You'll still walk away with like 10 grand.
Yeah.
Right. Which is not bad. And I found out what you wanted to use that money for and everything like that. Of course. And so eventually the deal was done and all the things were paid out as according they were supposed to. So had I given up, I wouldn't have gotten a deal. And it was a really lucrative deal.
Yeah. And that's the thing you touched on. Like sometimes that is where we make our money. Like that problem, you have to have a specific skill set in order to help them navigate to get to something that works for them. And I always say this as an acquisition guy is my only job is to help a seller navigate the problem they already have to get them to the closing table to that, however it makes sense for them to get there. That's really the only job we have, right?
Yeah.
Like it's relating to them, building rapport, and then helping them understand the path, bringing clarity to it. And the ones that are the most convoluted and like you dealt with, how many different errors in all of that, like that's where our money is made. That's where our value is given, and that's where we receive it. So
yeah,
no, that's awesome, man. How about you, Brian?
I got a couple that are coming to mind. So the very first deal I pursued, okay, was right when I went to that seminar, started looking for deals. This lady I was working with referred this house to me. It was her family home she grew up in. Her parents basically abandoned it and moved out to their farm and were ready to let it go to the bank. So this was like my first real lead. Yeah. That same week, I went to the local meetup, SSIC, and Rob Hader's up there talking about short sales, I think. And like, this is the first time I heard about a short sale. Because I'm like, they're about to let it go to the bank. They're underwater. I'm like, what can I do with this even? He's like, oh man, I talked to him about it. Go try it. We'll try a short sale. I'll help you out on it. I'm like, great. Now I just got to go track these people down.
Yeah.
So like I said, they moved out to their farm. It's about 2 hours outside of St. Louis. So one weekend I drove out there to meet them.
Yeah.
Get there, lose cell service right when I get off the highway. I'm trying to find off this back road off their cabin.
Yeah.
The lady I worked with was meeting me there. Drove back up to the highway. Hey, I can't find it. You got to drive out here and meet me. So she drove down the road a little bit, went back, found a creek that he had to cross. I don't have 4-wheel drive. I'm like, well, crap. So I was going back and forth with the highway to call her.
Oh my God.
Finally got back there. He came up and picked us up in my truck. And I spent probably 3 hours with these folks out there building rapport and getting to know them. And I put together a presentation packet for them and everything. And I barely knew what I was talking about, but I made a good enough impression. And anyway, long story short, the short sale didn't get accepted after months of trying to work it. But that was like the light bulb that was like, man, these deals are going to take a lot of effort. You got to be willing to go through extreme lengths in some cases to get deals done.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Brian.
I was just going to say, like, just on the opposite end, like one that we're about to close next week. Wasn't a hard deal to put together, but I feel good about helping these people like that are in hoarder situations. Like, there's some kind of mental health issue going on in most cases for them to end up like this. And this gentleman, he's older, in his late 70s. He's got a disability. I don't think there's running water in the property, and it's stuff stacked to the ceiling. So we were able to make him an offer. His family's ready to get him into a senior living to get help. And like, I just feel really good that man and that family's getting into a much better situation, and somebody's going to come in and fix up the house. So
yeah. And dude, I love that story from the start to where you're at now, because it's a perfect example of like getting into this industry. There's gonna, like, your 3 hour and like you put all the package together, and then you had to go back and forth to like the street, like that in the beginning is where you earn your ability and your resolve to continue to fight and keep moving forward. Like that, going through that, even though it didn't end up happening, like without a doubt, you can remember that and be like, oh, like I get to help this seller now, and this is a much easier position. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but for me, it's almost like, what's the phrase? All the successes in the world is just what you see after years of work behind the scenes. Like that story you had, Brian, is a perfect example, and of what you went through and still kept going is why you're able to do the stuff you're doing today.
Yeah, well said, Jetta. Josh, I couldn't put it any better. Thank you.
Call him Jetta.
I heard Jedi. I'll take that.
I heard Jetta.
No, man. You guys, like I said, you guys, I'll end it the same way I started it. You guys are amazing. I really greatly appreciate it. And just like that, we're right at an hour. So,
look at that. Thanks, guy.
Look at that.
How about that? So, Jake, Brian, I greatly appreciate it. Is there anything that you, right before we sign off, is there anything else that you guys have to impart, or, I mean, are you guys good to go? Anything that you want to?
Well, I'll give you a plug real quick, Josh. We've been working with you for a few months and helping us dive into little idiosyncrasies in our business and identifying blind spots. And if you're in this space and you need help, I would definitely recommend Josh. And
thank you.
Yeah, other than that, check out our podcast. We do this on our end. We've had Josh on there before, and we've had a lot of local experts and a lot of nationwide people, and we have a lot of fun with it. So go check it out. It's Freedom Path Investors. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Google, everything. So,
yep.
Well spoken.
Yeah. Anything from you, Jake? You good?
No, man. He just takes the words right out of my mouth. It's like he just reads my mind and just pops them out.
And that's why you guys work very well together.
Yeah. I think my advice is just have a sense of humor. Things are going to go bad. People suck. They're going to do things that are, that are going to hurt you or even not even mean to. It's going to happen. Just laugh at it and move on and stick to your plan.
This business can be a whole lot of fun if you're willing to ride the roller coaster.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. One last thing for Josh. He told us to always end the day with a win. So we've been doing that lately, and it is helping. Every day we say, what's the win? Even if something goes bad, what did we learn from that experience? That's the win.
Some days you got to dig deep to find the win, but
it's very true. And when we get in that habit, it makes it easier to see the wins as we keep going through the day. It helps with that momentum. But I appreciate the kind words from you guys, and I love working with you, like I said. And I'll end it there. Like, you guys are amazing, and I appreciate it every day coming on as well. So thank you guys. And I'll have their links to their podcast as well. I'll post that on it. I don't think anyway. We'll get that corrected if it isn't already on there. And I just appreciate you guys. Love you, brothers. And happy birthday again, Brian.
Thanks, man. 3-5 just all starts to blend in when you're over 30, man.
I'm going to be 39 in April, but Brian, you don't look a day over 34.
Oh, man, I just got my haircut. You see all the grays there? Come on, man.
Boom. Boom. It left when I was like 25. So I've had.
Guys, what are you doing? I'm 50. What is wrong with you?
All right, guys. Well,
let's say we're trying to buy 100 rental doors, single family in St. Louis over the next 5 years. We need some more. So give us a call if you got a property that fits that bill. We'd love to buy it.
Messages.
I love it. Always be promoting your value, guys. Awesome. Well, I appreciate it for sure. Thank you guys. And we'll end it there.
All right, Jack.